I want to tell you some intimate personal words about the war in Ukraine. I know that many people hate to hear anything about this topic, but we have to talk about it as long as Russia tries to wipe out our homeland, accordingly us. Russia's war against Ukraine stresses and traumatizes even those Ukrainians who feel safe here in Europe, in Sweden. Imagine how it feels to know that your homeland is at war, that your hometowns are being destroyed, that innocent compatriots are dying every day, and that you are unable to help them so much. Every day, many times you rewatch the news feed in search of the miracle, but there is no miracle, but there is a war. War demands attention, and there is no way to get away from it. It is incredibly difficult for Ukrainians to maintain a war-life balance, both in Ukraine and abroad. Every day we are looking for new opportunities to help Ukraine not just end the war, but to win it. Because the phrase "end the war" only means delaying the start of the new war with Russia. And winning the war brings us hope that it will not be able to happen again. We are grateful to Sweden for its strong support, but it is difficult for us to understand when other people show their complete ignorance about the war in Ukraine, and often their unwillingness to know about it at all. We believe that the world is very much connected. That is why it is so important to understand what is happening in it. We do not demand that the peaceful citizens of Europe suffer together with Ukrainians, but we do actively seek for the understanding. In the West, the majority do not believe that Russia can attack European countries. Same way, majority of Ukrainians in 2021 did not believe that they can attack Ukraine. But while European politicians are aggressing on coffee grounds, Russia is building factories and preparing weapons, increasing its military potential, training troops to fight in Ukraine, testing the limits of NATO's patience with its provocations, and preparing plans to destabilize Europe and NATO. Maybe Russia will not be able to seize any territory of European country, but Russians proved enough that they can create great troubles for all. Now the Russian military machine works many times better than 2 years ago. According to some polls, the level of support for the war among the Russian population is 60% or more. Russia already has large-scale military production and serious educational programs. They very actively teach their people, both military and civilians. They study the drone technology, has long been officially introduced into the schools programs and federal levels in Russia. Russians understand the value of technology and value of time. The whole country of Russia entered into excitement from the war, feeling the smell of blood. We are afraid that even the death of Putin will not stop the inertia. Ukrainians regretted their delay in preparing for the war. Europe and Sweden should not waste time. We would very much like to stop Russia by other non-military means, but we do not know how to do it. If you European politicians want to try to do it, please, but at the same time they should increase the ability to military resistance. And also, while trying to negotiate with Russia, one should never forget about the already committed war crimes and crimes against humanity. Evil should always be punished. But unfortunately, as we can see, it is not possible to force Russia to compensate for the harms through the negotiations. The aggressor understands what it means to pay for the evil committed. This means the political death of Putinism, the arrest of Putin. It means post-war payments and, in fact, Russia capitulation. How can you force Russia to surrender peacefully? Russia became the terrorist state. It is now the real and very serious threat to the whole world. Efforts to freeze the conflict are of no effect, because Russia wants to defeat not only Ukraine, but the West itself, and is not going to stop. The discussion of whether Russia is a threat or not is already weakening in itself. Such doubts are beneficial to Russia only because they are buying time for it, allowing Russia to continue doing its brutal work. While West is in discussions, Russia uses the United Nations organization as a platform for its toxic propaganda, as a platform for sowing their lies and contempt for the West. At the United Nations, Russia is the most skillful manipulator with numbers, data and concepts. For example, Russia does not provide nearly as much aid to third countries as the European Union does, but Russia lies a lot about it. Instead of any aid, Russia brings only death and destruction to the countries of the world. And this is literally true. For example, in Africa, Russia trades its military merchandise, selling rebellions and military support. There is a real certain price list. What is the cost of rebellion, military support, protection of the political regime? Russia used its veto power in the United Nations Security Council for the openly criminal purposes in a way that no other country has ever used it. No United Nations decision regarding Ukraine can be adopted in the United Nations Security Council because Russia is voting, having the veto right there. Same time, it is waging open, bloody war against Ukraine. Such cynicism should have no place in the United Nations Security Council. Please note that Ukraine is a founding country of the United Nations. What a hypocrisy it is when Russia, which is a member of the United Nations Security Council, that should be responsible for the war and peace, is waging an aggressive war of destruction against the founding country of its very organization. It's pity that understanding and seeing this, not a single European country was able to declare that the time has come to terminate Russia's membership in the United Nations Security Council. Why Russia is still there? Russia claims that the United Nations does not provide enough support to many poor countries, claiming that instead the United Nations helps Ukraine too much. Unfortunately, the representatives of Russia at the United Nations forget to add that there would have been much more aid and assistance in such third countries as Syria, Gaza and others if Russia itself had not started a war in Ukraine and had not blocked the Ukrainian grain corridor in the Black Sea and did not steal Ukrainian grain from the occupied territory of Ukraine and did not destroy the ports and infrastructure of Ukraine with its missile attacks. Russia is a terrorist country that uses any methods to achieve its imperial goals. Dmitry Medvedev, babbling Putin's head, said that Russia will always fight against Ukraine now and ever while Ukraine exists, because the presence of independent state on the historical Russian territories will now be a permanent reason for the renewal of military operations. However, all Ukrainians understand that in Russia's war against Ukraine, human life and order are at stake. Therefore, it is impossible to stop the fight against the Russian aggressor. In the same way, it is not possible to stop fighting the pandemic and inventing vaccines against the viruses. Medvedev's statement means only one thing: Russia declares the genocide of the Ukrainian people. This means it wants to destroy all Ukrainians, including Ukrainian women and children. At one time, Jesus said, "Do not offend these children, because the angels of heaven are watching for them. And whoever offends these little ones would be better off hanging a milestone around the neck and throwing themselves into the sea." We advise Medvedev, as long as he can follow this good advice, and do not forget to tie Putin to the milestone as well. Now a radical change is taking place in Ukrainian society, especially in that part of it which had experienced sympathy for the Russia before the war. After 2 years of Russian bombing, even those people who previously had nostalgia on the Soviet Union, who spoke Russian language in Ukraine and sang Russian songs, when Russia started the war, they thought that something happened by the chance and did not believe that Russia could attack. Now even such people realize that this is war not by a chance. Quite opposite, Russia is an enemy that comes to kill. Realizing it or not, Russia started this war against the entire civilized world. If you feel even a little solidarity with Ukrainians, then Russia is in a war with you personally as well. Minister for Civil Defense of Sweden, Carl Oskar Borlin, recently said that the citizens of Sweden should be ready in case the war approaches Sweden directly. The head of NATO Military Committee, Bob Bauer, warned that the civilian population in the West should prepare for a total war with Russia. He believes Sweden did the right thing, but urging its population to prepare for the war. Please help Ukraine to win this war as soon as possible, until that had not happened.